All right, we're ready.
Okay. Roll call.
Mr. Gary Gunnelsberger,
Here.
Ms. Dana Gamblin,
Here.
Mr. Walt Matthews.
Here.
Ms. Sharon Johnson,
Here.
Ms. Allison Will,
Here.
Ms. Janice Warner. All right, all those wishing to give testimony, please raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me.
Okay, first, we're going to do the approval of the minutes from May 31st, 2022.
Motion. Second.
It's been moved and properly second, signified by, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
No opposed? Okay. First thing on the agenda, old business.
Under old business, we have case number 1, 21-06, review of a variance. Charles Kreisner is appealing the demo of 520 East Jefferson, parcel number 56-00555.000. I would just go ahead.
PowerPoint.
Well, they should have it on.
They were given.
Should be good to go. Nope. No, you don't. I just go ahead and get started. It's recording, so. I don't know.
Okay, I'm Ron Snyder, Inspector for the Code Compliance Office for the City of Sandusky. This project had begun prior to me starting to work with the Code Compliance Office. Mr. Kreisner had presented his case before the board. If those of you that were here then do recall that the board had recommended that Mr. Kreisner bring in financial assurance that he could complete this job. I had went then with Mr. Tom, and I believe his contractor, and he was at the property, took a number of photos on that day. He was in total agreement with the comprehensive plan in order to start the work on this project. So on July 13th of 2001, if the PowerPoint was presenting, I had placed these photos in there to show the comparison with these photos, but this is not up and running at this point. I'd went over on May 6th of this year. Mr. Kreisner and his contractor have completely gutted the structure and started applying drywall, outlining rooms, raised the ceiling in the kitchen area. So work has been ongoing and so forth. So without the PowerPoint, I can't get to these. Some of the photos that I gave you is the photos from Mr. Kreisner showing what has been updated since the last time they were before the board. So.
Mr. Snyder, can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Are you satisfied as to how this is moving along?
I don't believe that the board, during the time that he had came the last time, had given him a deadline date, and I could be wrong. If we had the minutes available to us at that point, prior to, we would be able to know this. I did converse with them briefly. They were indicating no timeline had been given by the board as far as a year, 6 months, things of this nature. Progress is being made on the property, yes. There ain't for me to look at you and say he should have it done by now. I'm not a contractor, so I would be remiss by saying that it should be done by now. This was a large project and so forth, so. And maybe Mr. Tom can allude to that a little better. That's more of his forte in regards to those things. My primary responsibility at this point, I believe anyhow, is making sure that progress is being made. And we have made progress since the last time they were in front of the board, so.
Do you think there's a lot of progress or a little bit of progress? How do you rate this on a 1 to 10 progress?
On a 1 to 10?
A 10 being the best. I know it's not.
I'll go back to the photos and again, I'll let maybe the board members, if we look at the photos there, that's showing the photos as of July 13th of 2021. Now that area where you see Mr. Polis right there on the left photo, you'll see that photo again and you will notice a definite difference in that area. Areas. Again, this was taken July 13, 2021. This would have been right after the board had convened. And the comprehensive plan was granted. Again, 7/13. This was as of April of 2022. So between today's date or the last time I was over there and the first date I was in, you can see where the lath board had been removed from the walls there. And again, kills had been applied. Again, April, showing a little more cleanup there. You can see the rafters on the left photo. They have opened up that ceiling in the kitchen area to raise that ceiling.
Can we be reminded, since it's not, are we just reviewing the process, or what was the reason we brought this back right now?
The point was a certain amount of time for them to come in. It needed to be reviewed to make sure that progress was being made and this project was ongoing. So.
It was originally a demo order.
Yes, and
Go ahead.
can I also ask, I'm sorry, the question just left me. Was this just because I could only review this and I don't really, I remember the case, but I don't completely remember. Was this a multifamily unit or it's a single family? Gotcha.
My question would be, follow up with Sharon's question. So he is making progress, but is it up to code compliance? I mean, because anything can be masked to say that it's being done.
Sure. As far as code compliance regarding walls, no, there's nothing right now that is in compliance in regards to, there's no dressings on the wall. Electricity still has to be re-ran, things of this nature. Because this property is not occupied, let's say, if I had an occupied structure that had a family living in it and we had code infractions, there's going to be urgency to get that structure back in compliance for the occupants. The structure is vacant, so that timetable now falls upon the contractor. I can't necessarily fault the owner of the property on contractor's timelines. So we look at progress. Now, from one end of the spectrum to the other, progress can be, I mean, progress is progress, but some may say progress is not moving along like it should, or let's say fast enough. So there's a lot of work to be done still in this residence, but work is being done. So if that makes sense.
No, it does. I'm curious with that. And then I think, did you say something that Mr. Brown could answer?
Sorry.
Mr. Tom.
Mr. Tom?
Tom could answer.
I can say that I've had numerous contractors tell me they've had a lot of supply chain and employee problems where they can't get the help that they need to get things rolling. So there's been significant delays on a lot of projects from different contractors and general contractors that I've talked to. So that has been an ongoing issue since COVID began, and it's still there right now. I mean, I'm hearing guys saying they're having a hard time getting windows, doors, that type of material, so.
So well, playing devil's advocate, so I won't have to like look back at 2025 and this is still not done.
And I can't see into the crystal ball and see what's going to happen, but.
Like 2019, so.
Yeah.
And then he started doing work in 2021, so that's 2 years right there.
Right.
So again, I'm just, playing devil's advocate that, work is being done and that's fine, but again, is this something that we may have to revisit in 2025 that is still looking like this? So that's just throwing it out there.
If the board would like to set a deadline, I think that would be their decision to, say it has to be completed by such and such a time in a habitable condition. That wouldn't be an unreasonable thing,
Is there outside work as well?
Not
Needs
as
to
a,
be done? Some paint, it looks like one,
there are some aesthetic issues that will need to be addressed, yes. I think the severity of the damage was caused by the fire,
okay.
so the priority level is being handled at this point. And maybe the contractor will be able to allude more to that. He is here.
Okay, I'm wondering for neighbors' sake, since they are making progress indoor, what's the plan for the neighborhood and the aesthetics there for the neighbors to have to deal with if that's being taken care of?
Would you like to hear from the property owner and his contractor?
One second,
Sorry.
Mr. Dunkelberger had the question.
I believe that the paperwork that we're looking for is from the following meeting in July of 2021, which I believe it's more specifies what the terms of the arrangement was then. We don't have that in front of us now, so we're at a bit of a disadvantage. And I don't recall exactly what was said and what happened. But is your contractor here? You're the contractor. Could you step up to the mic? Can you just
First
state
of
your
all,
name
yeah,
and,
who
Paul
you are.
Kovach, DMK Properties and Construction.
okay. Can you give us a rundown where you're at this point, when the project started and
So
what's
basically,
happening?
we went in there, and the pictures he has was after your meeting. Well, these are newer photos here, but we basically demoed probably 75% of what was not already demoed, and we're right now in the process of, all the mechanicals are done, basically putting everything back together. As you can see, I think they put up 50 sheets of drywall over the last couple of weeks. They're finishing the kitchen, and like here, we raised the ceiling, we vaulted the ceiling in the kitchen, so all that stuff had to be reframed and drywalled. As far as interior, the only thing that really is left, they decided to change the stairway layout, so we've got to alter, they made a turn, we decided to turn it, so we've got to do some alterations to the floor of the second floor in order to put the new stairwell in, but pretty much we're on the downstroke, putting everything back together now.
Okay.
And as of last July, what the guidelines were, it was my understanding that they condemned the house because there was a percentage of it that was unfinished. Hence, it was condemnable or
Right.
deemed to be torn down. I think we're way past that percentage now, saying that we've basically torn everything apart and we're, 75% past putting it back together. We've exceeded the point where it's deemed, I don't know how you condemned. So, and at this point, they're making changes. We demoed the house, we're putting it back together, so we're changing things as we go, but everything is in a positive, the better basically better the home itself. Like we vaulted the ceilings in the kitchen, we're opening up a room, we added a first floor laundry, the other laundry was in the basement, so we've done you know, a good deal of alterations to what was there that weren't part of, you know, how do I say, you know, putting it, we could have just thrown drywall on the whole thing, said, here, we're done.
Right.
You know, but now we're, you know, we're into the house, making it, you know, more updated, modern, so on and so forth.
Okay. Have there been follow-ups through the city as far as what progress has been made
I believe,
periodically?
yeah, I think they've swung by over the, I think it's been almost 8 or 9 months, a good 3 or 4 times, I would say, no?
3 or 4 times. Each time there's that progression that is being made, so.
So what do you foresee as the likelihood of completing this project, the timeframe?
We should have all the drywall finished up within the next week or so. We're trying to get a taper. Our windows are coming in mid-July, hopefully. They had an 8 or 10-week lead time. So, you know, we're putting all new windows in. And hopefully if they come in on time, you know, when they get in, then we got to get the installers lined up.
Sure.
And then it's just basically as things come about, you know, we get them done. We've had a good steady flow, I mean, of progress. It's just, it's, you know, while you're in there doing things, you have it all apart. Here, you know, well, we have this torn apart, let's do this, let's change this, instead of just throwing it back together to appease everybody,
Absolutely.
you know? So, like I said, I think we're way well past the point where it needs, you know, needed to be, or why they were gonna tear it down.
Do you think that this is something that can be accomplished if things go well? Is it something that can be accomplished in the next 6 months or sooner?
Yeah, I would say so. It's just, you know, the finishes, you know, it's a 100-some-year-old house, so everything you look at, it's, you know, twice the work you thought it was. You know, you
Sure.
look at the wall, the plaster falls off compared to just going and fixing something, so. And then, you know, depending on what other changes we make and, you know, how you want it to look, it's, you know, that's one of the things we've been, you know, you just want it to look, you know, mediocre or take the extra time to make things look better. You know, it's a 100-some-year-old house.
Right.
You know, 50 coats of paint on the woodwork. You know, for example, now you have all our windows. You got 13 windows that have 50 coats of paint on. How you make them look nice.
Right.
It's not something that happens overnight, you know. It's a lot of tedious and time-consuming work, you know. It's, you know, you can't put a time frame on it. How long is it going to take to strip a window down or sand it down to make it look like it doesn't, it's not 120 years old and baking in the sun and have 50 coats of paint on it. So you can give a fair, you know, until you get into some things, you don't know actually how long they're going to take. But we're on a, I mean, it's, how do I say, everything we're doing is done, you know, timely, and we're doing it, you know, updating everything, so it's not, you know, basically throwing the coat of paint on it to make it, you know, drywall to make it look nice. And like she said, brought up the outside, how the neighborhood, hopefully when we're done with this house, it'll be one of the nicer houses on the street, you know, compared to the 2 houses on both sides of this house are a far cry from nice houses, so this house will be, you know, stand out on the street as one of the nicer houses.
And I myself, I'm looking forward to that day when that comes, that we can get a final report that you're done and the house is ready to be occupied. But I think we need to establish a time frame to go by, and then if we go with 6 months, for example, and you're needing more time, you can always communicate that back to the inspector, and we can go from there. But
I have the minutes from the September.
it sounds like you're making good progress.
Excuse me, wait a minute.
That's all right.
Mr. Rucker wants to speak.
So looking at the minutes from the from the July meeting, the contractor gave an estimated start time of September of 2021.
Okay.
And from that start date, the board gave them a year, along with the comprehensive rehabilitation plan that was to be approved by the chief building official.
Was it approved?
Yes, it was.
So a year from September of 21.
So we're almost approaching that year here, so, and you're asking for 6 months.
Could I ask
Hold on.
another question?
Yes.
Was there any electrical and plumbing that had to be done in this house? And is that all put in?
I understand your question.
Electrical and plumbing, has that been done? in the house, and is that completed?
Yeah, you basically, anything, that stuff was basically minor, like, for example, we altered the bathroom, so we had to move the drain, instead of having one sink on this wall, we put a two-bowl sink on this wall, so, the plumbing had to be all redone, and that was all done before the drywall was done.
Okay, did you get permits for that?
None of that work requires a permit, because nothing's new, it's just altering what is there, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Okay. But yeah, you want to go ahead?
Mr. Kreisner?
I'd like to say this. I can't tell you when the house will be done, but I want it done to where I could live in it if I wanted to live in it. Because like I say, I've never lived in a shack, and I own a lot of property. And I want it to be not the nicest house on the street, one of the nicest in the community. I like the fact that it's an old house. For me, it's a personal thing. I don't even care what it costs. I'm financially able to buy or live anywhere in the world. So like I say, the end result, maybe we've got to strip something on the outside and start doing some stuff on the outside. Maybe we have to change the look of the outside. And so I just want it to be a nice house that anybody would want. Now, it is too big for me, but like I say, I want to make it family, wheelchair accessible, and family accessible. That's why we redid the kitchen with the laundry room on the first floor, because those basements in Sandusky are dungeons, face it, So this is why I live in a Victorian house now. And I try not to go in the basement, but my laundry room is in the basement, and the bathrooms are small and everything else. All the things we're doing in this house are improvements over where I am.
Okay, thank you.
Right. You go ahead.
Steve, just one question, Steve, if I may.
Yes, sir.
You read the date was September 30th and a period of time beyond September 30th of last year?
So from the July meeting from 21, the contractor gave an estimated start date of September of 21, no specific day in September. And then the board gave a year from that estimated start date as a completion date.
Okay, so my take on that then would be to allow the 1 year to be reached, okay? So we're looking at September, and then 6 months beyond that, hopefully you're able to wrap this up. Hopefully. Now, that's not going to be a hard deadline, but we'll get together again if we need to and go from there. But that gives you time to work on it as best you can, and it gives us some assurance that it's going to be done as soon as possible, and we're not going to get into this long-term 2025,
No, I think my question is what's your definition of complete to what point? We doing, first someone living in there, or get it to a point where it's, beyond what you guys would consider a hazard? Are you going to see through until we get somebody living in there or sell the house? You see what I'm? We might get to a point if we're going to put the house up for sale as we're working on it. Obviously, flooring, paint colors, so on and so forth, things like that. If you're going to sell the house, maybe we list it before it's done. Someone might want to pick those things out for themselves. So my question is, what level of completion are you guys saying to where?
So that someone is ready to move in and safely move in, and that the neighborhood, for me, the neighborhood of aesthetics is important. No matter what's surrounding the house, anyone driving down the city of Sandusky streets, I think it's important. I can't really tell from these pictures. It's a little hard, but it seems like there might be some paint that's needed. Is that part of the?
Yes, fair assessment, yes.
Yeah, and so I feel like a year and a half is a good amount of time to have a house finished.
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying. I'm understanding so your guys' your definition of completion is finished, done, sold.
No, we're not
Occupiable.
saying, we're not saying that. Basically, as you just said, your own words, to make it be the nicest looking house.
Right.
So that's that. So in your definition of what a nice looking house would be, that's what we're going with at this point. So that means that you're fixing it up, you're doing what has to be done. I know that there's gonna be some things in there that has to be fixed up. He just stated that, he wants it to look a certain way, handicap accessible, so forth. But what we're also saying at this point is that we're giving you till September, 6 months additional. If you need more time and the progress is showing that you need more time, we'll be willing to work with you.
No,
But we have to have a start and a finish, an end date somewhere in there. So
No, I understand.
anything can be worked as long as you talk to us. And the inspectors are going out, as you said yourself, every so many months or twice a month or whatever. So it looks like everybody's working together. We just need to pull it together as far as the date.
All right.
Excuse me 1 second. I see you have your hand raised. Okay, can you state your name for the record?
Chris Fanning.
Okay.
Hypothetical question. If we list the house for sale and someone wants to buy it in this, mid-construction or whatever, and we finish the construction, will we be able to sell it?
Right now, mid-construction, you're saying?
Whatever.
At any point.
In better condition, somewhere down the line within the next, from September to 6 months after.
As long as it passes inspection, what you do with your property is your property.
Is the house still listed as condemned?
I mean, as of for right now, until the inspectors tell us something different, again, I don't know if the architect has gone out or Mr. Tom or whomever has gone out. So when they meet again, they can let us know where we're at with that. I mean, it only takes 56% for it to be at demolition part. So if you're telling me that you've got 75% of it that's better, then of course you have succeeded at this time. But again, we have nothing to show that except the pictures, and the pictures are still saying it needs to be worked on. So that is something that would need to be communicated to the inspectors. And once they give us that, what you choose to do with your property is your property.
Okay. So we can set up a meeting with the inspectors to inspect the house?
Yes,
Thank you.
Okay, Dana,
yes.
if we're going to give him 6 more months, I don't have a problem with that. But when we get into the 6 months, I'd like to see halfway through, within 3 months, for him to come back and tell us what progress he's made, if he's close to getting this done. I would like to have a progress report from them, so
That's
have
why we were giving
a
them the 6
meeting 3 months from now.
That's why we were giving them the 6 months for the progress report.
But I want something halfway, too.
Well, the inspector can keep us apprised of that. So, but again.
Because I'm with Gary, I don't want this strung out,
I
okay?
think it will be. But do you have a motion? Where are we going with this?
Well, I'll make a motion
You shouldn't need a
that
motion.
we,
No, we don't.
You're just reviewing the variance that you granted, the 1 year that you granted from
But
the
we're gonna
July
add the
meeting of
additional
last
6
year.
months.
Do you want them back in September before you add the 6 months?
We can't add it today.
You can. You would have to have a motion then. But if you're simply reviewing the variance and letting it ride out until September, and then come September, they come back to you, and at that point in time, you make the motion to give them the additional 6 months based on their progress. That's entirely up to the board.
So, what did,
well, stated that way, it would probably be best to allow that time frame to extinguish itself, come back and see us in September, and we'll go from there.
okay.
And if we're not listed as condemned in September, do we need to come back in 6 months?
So basically,
I'm not gonna address
Well-
that until we talk to you in September. Because
Okay.
we
basically,
need
that's the
to-
question I was kind of asking, where we
Well-
need to be to get out of here. That's kind of my question.
So
When do we-
basically,
when do
talk
we
with
reach
the
that point
inspectors.
in our
Okay.
rehab that we're done?
Gotcha.
Less than
Understood.
50?
Put it this way, the
Yeah, I mean, I'd have
condemnation
to
was placed,
reevaluate it.
was put in place due
No,
to
I'm
the
saying
structural
though, if it's
integrity.
less than 50.
Right? Aesthetics is not something that it would have been condemned for. So aesthetics we can work with. If you was to sell the property, the purchaser can address the aesthetic.
The demo order is withdrawn.
What we'll do is like I said, prior to the September board meeting,
If it's less than 50%.
I'll either get with Mr. Tom or his
the demolition
assistant.
is removed.
We'll come over, we'll walk through, we'll take some pictures, we'll get, and we'll come all back in here and present it to the board.
Okay, great, that's what I needed to know. Thank you for your
Okay,
time.
you're welcome, thank you. So that has been addressed. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you for yours.
I really don't want
All
to
right.
sell it. I just thought.
Well, the choice is yours. You can make that decision.
He's selling it.
Is the representative here?
Okay, and
1206.
so we're,
Don't have to be. Okay.
we're gonna move on.
We'll move on. Item number 2, 1206 Mylan Road.
Did we vote on this? We
No,
didn't.
we didn't need to vote on this because we're giving them until September, which
Oh,
is
the
original
variance,
date.
okay,
So when they
gotcha.
come back in September, then we'll talk with them at that time.
Okay.
So, Mr. Rucker,
All
number
right.
2.
So an update of 1206 Mylan Road, parcel number 57-02475.000. It's an update to a demo order. Property owner is Franz Kistler.
Ron Snyder, Code Compliance Officer for the City of Sandusky. So when I was delivering the packets for the board members, me and Mr. Gunnelsberger had a brief little conversation. He had inquired in regards to this property. The board had ruled, they found in favor of a $100 penalty. If we go back and look at the minutes, Mr. Gunnelsberger had alluded to the fact is, kind of like, are we going to continue to ding these folks for this garage, or maybe there's another alternative measure at this point? So on October 5th, 2021, I had received this complaint in regards to the condition of the garage. On the 7th, I confirmed the actual complaint was valid. Initial inspection resulted in the owners being sent notification of violation. So the letters in regards to that, and if you recall, they did come, they spoke with Pamela Myers, who indicated she and her husband didn't have any money to address that document or that issue. Allow me, hang on just a moment here. I do apologize. There's two, this is the official boards for the board meetings, right? And there's two 1206s on that, so I do apologize.
Are the owners here tonight?
No, they are not.
No, this was suggested after the package went out and after the point of the letters for them to go. It was just a matter of just letting the board know what the status was on the garage. And I do take this back. So 2/22 of 2022, after the Housing Appeals Board had convened, heard all the evidence and denied the Kistler's appeal, I spoke with them in the lobby of the city building after the meeting. Both of them at that point had felt that they wanted to refurbish or rehab this garage. So I told them basically, keep me in the loop, get a contractor, call me. He had mentioned something about having the Amish come up and take care of this. I never heard from them. So on the 28th, I gave the Kistlers a chance, contact the contractor, and agreed to some sort of a plan of an action. We got to April 13th, and there had been no change in this property. No contact had been made by the Kistlers or to address the issue with me regarding this. So on May 4th, again, no change of the property was noted. Plans moving forward on this matter have stalled by the Kistlers, whether it be as far as to fix or to demo it. I did have a conversation with the wife in regards to this. She felt that maybe a demo would be a proper disposition. Told her this was a conversation that she needed to have with her husband, not with me, because they had to necessarily agree on this. So at that point, I met and conversed with our housing supervisor, Mr. Rucker, and pursuing a search warrant and having a structural integrity assessment with Mr. Tom done for a potential demolition on this property. On May 26th of this year, a search warrant was obtained, prepared, signed by Municipal Judge Eric O'Brien. Met with the building official, Mr. Tom, SPD Officer Ronte Hill Morton on the Mylan Road address. We made contact with Mrs. Kistler. She was very cooperative, walked us to the rear of the property. Mr. Tom had done his assessment on the deterioration of that structure and came up with a percentage of 85.56% of deterioration. So at this point, I am in the process of pursuing the demolition letters. A lien search has been done. It was returned on the 21st of this month, so nothing more now than to go ahead and prepare those letters, send them out to those people that are financially interested within this property. If we get no rebuttal from any of those parties, that'll go up to planning and development, and they'll schedule for asbestos testing and then for final demolition of that property. So.
Okay. Good, thank you.
Did you say there's liens on the property?
There is, yes.
How many?
I would have to actually get the lien report and take a look at that.
I mean, we're talking 2, 3, or?
I believe it was 6 or 7, actually.
6?
A number of financial institutions that have interest besides the Erie County Office of Taxation across the street. So.
Oh, boy.
So at this time, there's nothing that we need to vote on. You'll get those letters and then bring it to our attention as far as demolition.
Sir? I'm sorry.
This was just an update?
This was just an update.
Yeah, that's what I said, so we don't have to do anything with this at this point, so, just to clarify, okay. I thank you. We
Thank you.
Okay. We're moving on, new business.
First case under new business, 22-06, Kathy Freebus is appealing first administrative penalty for 1315 Shelby, parcel number 58-02935.000. Bless you.
Ron Snyder, Code Compliance Officer for the City of Sandusky. As Mr. Ricker alluded to, this is concerning the property at 1315 Shelby Street, not the primary residence. It will be a garage to the west side of the structure off of a public alleyway. On January 31st, while in this alleyway, 1300 block, there was a number of properties that basically, when I was patrolling, going through these areas and checking for infractions, this property was one of 4 that I noted violations in that alleyway. The garage to the rear of that structure, it didn't have any gutters and downspouts on that structure. It was subsequently, I wrote up a notice and order a violation letter and sent it to the property owner according to the auditor's website. There was a slight discrepancy with the mailing address at that time. On 2/3 of 2022, the office basically received a certified letter and a certificate of mail letter back indicating that the address that the mail was sent to, according to the auditor's website, was not a good address, and listed the correct address indicated in the complaint section. To ensure the property owner received the proper correspondence, both returned envelopes were placed in a larger envelope along with a letter explaining to the property owner what the discrepancy was, and was sent certified and certificate of mail to make sure that the property owner did properly receive notification of the infraction. These are copies of those letters. You'll see that the 2 on the very far right were both of them that were returned, given the indication that the address needed to be changed. On February 25th, 2022, Ms. Freebus contacted me after receiving the most current correspondence. We spoke regarding the gutter and downspout issue on her garage, but had some concerns about the weather and how it was not conducive to basically accomplish compliance at this time. She was optimistic about reaching compliance, but felt it would not be, she would not be able to accomplish it until the weather changes. So I had, that point there, I had agreed with her, all right? So what we did is we extended her time frame down the road to where outside work on that structure would be a little more conducive to a contractor or someone that she was having conduct that work. And that is a copy of the courtesy letter indicating that we moved her timeline out for her. On 5/5, which would have been the next inspection date after that courtesy was granted, was conducted, again, there was no changes noted, no gutters, no downspouts installed. So because of the fact that this was the date of inspection, I know that in speaking with her, she had spoken to someone about doing this work. And I will let her explain the difficulties that she had with this individual in regards to that. But back to this, as a result, an administrative penalty for $100 was administered. So she was sent a letter indicating that the administrative penalty was taken against her. But what I found is I went back through there on the 9th of June and noted that the gutters and downspouts had been installed. So, and we had conversed on the telephone after the fact as well in regards to that we were just shortly thereafter that inspection date. And again, may have been some discrepancy with her and the person that was supposed to have done this. So, okay.
Is she here?
Yes, she is.
Okay, would you like to step up, please?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. And if you could state your name and address, please.
Catherine Freebus. I'm so nervous. 3701 Scottley Drive in Sandusky.
Okay. All right. So what would you like to tell us, Ms. Freebus?
Freebus, yes.
Okay, what would you like to tell us?
Well, just basically the mail mix-up was I've been living in Florida and ended up with custody of 2 grandchildren that with some problems, and so I had to move back. So one of the things I did not do was change my address here. So that was that. And then with getting it fixed, the guys that I used that does repair work for us was just extended out there. He ended up reaching out to another person that could get this done for me because he couldn't even get it done in that time frame. I was under the impression he told me he would have it done by the 5th, and it was just one of those things that was on the back burner for me. So I'm just getting used to raising teenagers again. So that's all I have. I mean, I got it done as soon as I could. And I'm very
I make a
sorry.
motion to accept, or I don't know what the wording is, but to
Waive it?
waive it. Thank you.
There you go.
Waive the $100 fine. It's done, and it was within a short amount of time after her date.
Second?
It's been moved and properly seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
No opposed?
Thank
We'll get roll call.
Thank you.
Okay, let us do our roll call. Give us 1 second, Mr.
Speak.
Oh, you want to speak?
Yes.
Okay.
You do that before you vote?
It just passed.
We just voted.
It just passed.
Voted out. I'd like to, I testified to vote on another issue, and
Okay,
I listened to this issue. I'd like to preface my next issue with this one.
with this issue here?
Yes.
Okay. Let the floor recognize Mr. Meiser. You may step up.
Ma'am, I'm sorry, I don't even know. So, I'm Mike Meinzer, 413 Cove Street, and I was involved very early on with Mr. Ginsberger, Housing Nuisance Task Force, served on this board, worked with Mr. Will, Mrs. Will's husband, trying to work on code compliance nuisance task force. I just listened to testimony. I was patrolling an alley and noticed no gutters. Do you know why we formed the Housing Nuisance Task Force? I have vacation rentals. People drive to this city and they say, is it safe here? Is it really safe? Like, it feels like I just drove through Lima or Dayton. That is why the initiative started to create all of this. This is insane, listening to this lady who lives, are you a private homeowner? You own the home? And live there?
No,
You rent it?
I didn't intend to be a landlord. My son and his wife
Okay.
had drugs, and I ended up.
Look around this room. This makes me crazy. And I brought a couple commissioners, and there's more commissioners. We cannot manage day-to-day functions of the housing department. We cannot do it because the city manager in charge, but we can defund it. And if I keep listening to this, I'm going to defund it because the allocations and budget allocations are coming up. I am tired of listening to this.
Mr. Meinzer,
Thank you.
I don't understand. What's your point here?
Well,
What is your gripe?
what do you mean, my gripe? I just told you. We are patrolling, this housing nuisance task force or code of compliance is patrolling alleys looking for the big nuisance in the neighborhood. Is that the freaking biggest thing we have in Sandusky? Is this lady that has her roof runs into an alley? I still drive through the city every day. I said in 3 years I was going to work on housing and neighborhoods. You know what? It still looks like Dayton and Tiffin, and I'm not looking at gutters and downspouts. That's my point.
Well, that's part of
Ask
this.
Mrs. Will.
It's part of this, though.
Pardon?
It's part of this.
Okay, Mrs. Will, you showed up with your whole neighborhood drug. I'm going to come back. I'm not done. So you had a drug problem in your neighborhood, a rundown, blighted property, right?
I showed up with it?
Pardon?
I showed up with it?
No, your whole neighborhood did. Right across the street from you.
Yeah,
Right?
neighbors of mine came, but that
That's
was
what
not
we
me.
set out
That
to do.
was,
That's what we set out to do 20 or 30 years ago, to clean that kind of crap up. Now, I don't even know this lady, and I don't know this couple that come to represent tonight, but I'm coming back. But this is just off the track.
so what you're saying is you would like bigger picture things taken
Pardon?
care of? I guess we just need clarification.
What
You
it
want-
was, when we started, I mean, Mr. Ginnelsberger, when we did the code enforcement, building department, the fire department, the police department, every go to a nuisance. There's a house across the street from me, 30 police calls, heroin, domestic violence, assaults with knives, bank robbery, grass is up to my knees. You know, who drives back that thing? Who drives by that house?
But what are you asking from us?
There's no gutters in the alley.
But what are you trying, what would you like?
I'm just saying, we have to dismantle this whole freaking thing, defund it or run it correctly. Like, what in the hell is he doing patrolling a freaking alley?
Okay.
Looking for gutters.
All right.
All right, slam the hammer, Mr. Williams, I'm sorry.
I heard you, and.
You know what I'm saying?
No,
I work
understand
with
what you're
you.
saying. I understand.
No,
I understand.
You're the,
I'm sorry, but
Mr. Meinzer, you're the commissioner, okay?
I'm one,
You
there's
got-
two more back here,
You got
and there's
6
more
other
that are waiting to come here.
commissioners to take this up with them,
I am.
okay?
I'm meeting with Eric on Thursday. We're meeting with Eric on Thursday. We can't meet in 4 of us, but there's some wrong. Inherently wrong, systemically wrong. There is something wrong.
All right.
That's all I'm saying.
Okay. We will bring that up at one of our meetings.
That's
It
not-
has been moved and properly second. Can you do roll call?
Roll call. Mrs. Will,
This
Yes.
is for the lady.
this is on your motion.
Yeah.
Oh,
For our
This is on your
motion.
motion.
okay, yeah. I
We
made
have to do a
motion.
roll call.
Mr. Ginnelsberger,
Yes.
Mrs. Gamblin,
Yes.
Mrs. Will,
Yes.
Mr. Matthews.
Yes.
Mine's yes, too.
Okay.
Motion passes.
All right, motion passes. Okay, we're gonna move on to.
Before we move on, commissioners, don't leave, please. You have the power anytime you want to vote people off of boards or onto boards. If you're not happy with what's going on, act.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
you know what? No, okay. Oh,
No,
okay.
Don't be sorry.
Let's get one thing straight. I'm just gonna call it like it is. First of all, at the end of the day, when this board was assembled, I was told that it was doing one thing. Now, if there's something that you want this board to particularly do, then the commissioners, just like we had this meeting, they can go to Mr. Rucker and say, I would like to meet with the board at a certain time to bring us all in, and therefore you can share what you would see or what you want to see out of this. But at the end of the day, again, if his job is to patrol around the city, then so be it. Then that's what he does. At the end of the day, we get all kind of different things brought to us. All we can do is address what is brought to us at that time. So again, like I said, all of you commissioners are elected. We get asked. We don't get elected. They ask us to take time out, and we do that.
It's a volunteer position. We volunteer our time.
I know, I'm sorry. Something struck a nerve when I heard this lady like talking about gutters in the alley. I apologize. I did go off the heck. I went out and tried to take a deep breath. But I'm not exactly a volunteer position. I make $500 a month. But I have constituents that I get called all the time. Every day. I spend hours on every day listening and try to solve problems, and most of them are with code compliance. And Ms. Williams, when I first met you, I knew you were like stand-up woman and said what you meant and meant what you said. And
nothing has changed.
yeah, I know. You're still the same. I get it. I understand. I apologize. I am not directing my dissatisfaction with this board. There's something wrong in the process, and I intend to fix it and make your job easier or whatever. I don't know if I can fix it or not. I've got a couple commissioners, listen, there's more than 2, there's more than 3, there might be 4 or 5 that are ready to reset this whole thing. So you got to vote what you got to vote. I mean,
But also,
you have your parameters. I understand.
Listen, sir,
I'm not mad at anybody here.
we're not mad either, but you're coming here blowing up our darn meeting. But you know, the thing of it is, you got to have some kind of
Parameters.
of something working in town. If we didn't do that, nobody did it. Hell, nobody would have that.
I agree with you, Ms. Matthews. I agree with you.
And can I say one
it
thing
is
too?
our job.
Yeah, and I think all of us are here because we care about the city, and I care about the neighborhoods, and same as you, I'm sure.
All you guys, there's no criticism whatsoever about any of you.
And sometimes we see these, things that are in much worse
Maybe we have to
condition,
work
and
with
we
Mr.
might see it
Klein.
in across the streets from our homes. But right now, if there's something that you want to change, I think we're all doing exactly what we're told to do. And so, it would be possible to maybe do something on the side and come before us and tell us what to do. We'd be happy to talk about.
Exactly. And I'm, I've only got a year left, and I may not get reelected, but Mr. Klein we need to move this up. I don't want to hear people come from out of town for 20 years. This looks like Lima. This looks like Dayton. I'm afraid. Do I have to lock my car? So, the only thing triggered me was patrolling the alley. I know Puppy was a great cop, but is this Gestapo? Are we patrolling alleys looking for gutters or downspouts? It doesn't even make sense. So that comes back to our responsibility, Mr. Klein's responsibility, and Mr. Tom's responsibility, and Mr. Bajali, who actually worked in code enforcement. We've had discussion a long time. He worked several years in code enforcement. He worked for the Erie Regional Planning Committee, Great Erie Regional Planning Officer.
Yeah, so at the end of the day, this is what I'm gonna say.
Yeah.
Put it in the outline, proposal,
Yeah,
bring it to
we got to
us
change
so
something.
we can
I
work
agree.
with
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to take it on you.
That's fine.
I apologize if I
And I
came
get it.
across.
I get
I'm
it.
quick to fire. Allison knows me, or Mrs. Will knows me. I
Well,
work
at
with
the end of
Sharon.
the day, though, like I said, we do what we can.
I know. This has nothing to do with you.
Every little bit, yeah. So we
Make
get
it
that.
look
So.
better. I get it. Go ahead, Richard.
I just want to say one thing.
Yes, ma'am.
I was upset too. I thought, seriously, a gutter? Are you the rest of the house is good, what? And I called him, I'm like, really, we don't have bigger things? But he explained to me that he was back there on another issue. And you can't very well write up one garage that is granted, mine was just gutters, but the other ones needed a lot more work. So you can't let this one go and do this one and do that one. I didn't have gutters, I was wrong, and I'm glad that I got it on, because now my neighbors have it too, and the water problem in between there is now gone. Is it earth-shattering? Probably not, but he treated me very fairly. I felt listened. He heard my issues that I was, he sent letters to Florida and I didn't answer. And I explained, he was very kind. He gave me the time, and I was very nervous about the whole thing because I don't like to break rules. But I just want you to know, I feel he's doing a very good job.
And I'm going to just tell you, a lot of people, this is how we get people that get brought before us, because they're out doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And they just happen
I
to
do
see.
understand that we do
So-
have some big things to do, but
Exactly.
I just came back from Florida, and I got to tell you, I've been gone for 5 years. I come up occasionally, But I was very, very proud of Sandusky. The downtown is amazing, and I think the city streets and that are looking a lot better. I mean, there's some problems in areas, but
No,
I am very proud to be back here.
I get
and,
it, but I thank you though. I
You're
do
very
thank
welcome.
you.
Man.
Dana, could I say something more too?
Actually, we're gonna move on because it's not fair to this other family that's sitting out here, so we
Okay.
need to keep it going.
All
So bring them up, please.
Item number 2 under new business, case number 22-07, Dale and Bess Myers are appealing the housing write-up for 1115 Waverly, parcel number 57-02820.000.
Ron Snyder, Code Compliance Officer, City of Sandusky. So on May 13th, I had received a correspondence from a family member to a family member that lives at 1121 Waverly. I had been initially at their property. There was issues that were brought up from Mrs. Myers, and I went to address them. One of the issues that I had at 1121 that I had written that property up for was railings on stairs. So this family member was sitting with her brother that lives next door and looked over and had indicated in the email that if the residence in which my family owns has to have a railing up for these stairs, why does not the residence at 1115? Explained to her, listen, when I came out there to look at 1121, I didn't focus on 1115, but I would look into it, and I did. So on May 16th, I checked 1115 Waverly, and in fact, there was no railings for the steps on the east side of the front porch, which was noted to have 5 risers. And also, there was a set of steps, no railing on the south side of the front porch, noted to have 4 risers. So Mrs. Myers had stepped out onto the boulevard, spoke with her briefly concerning the complaint, at which time she had mentioned the complaint had been rendered, the fact that there was no railings on the 2 sets of the porch steps. She told me that she and her husband were grandfathered and did not need the railings. She indicated that apparently someone from our building department had told them at the time when they did the refurbish of the residence that they were not required to have these railings. Mrs. Meyer advised, she was basically thought I would check into it. And when I returned to the office, I went over to the building department and inquired to see if anything was on file with them. Now, at that time, the administrative assistant told me there was nothing in file. I then checked with planning and development to see if there was a variance granted to that property to determine whether or not this was an actual violation or not. They didn't have anything in the computer. Their administrative assistant went to the basement, checked the archives, and she didn't find anything either. At that time, the assistant building inspector came to the office and then handed me a document that basically it's the 2019 Residential Code, Ohio Chapter 300, Section 311.7.8 for handrails. It says handrails shall be provided for not less than one side of each flight of stairs with 4 or more risers. Because of the document, this is just nothing more than a schematic in case there's an issue in regards to what an actual riser is. Photos of the structure on 517, or of the residence. On, I guess it's 518, I went ahead and wrote the property up for the lack of or absence of handrails, and they were sent a letter to reflect same. I go back, I don't know if we can tell, those steps are numbered, but they're not really showing up in regards to that one there, clear in regards to that. So now I do know that the property owner did have the building department, the assistant inspector, come out to the residence. And I can let Mr. Tom allude to that a little more. So they have appealed the fact of the actual write-up. That's all. There was no administrative penalty rendered in this matter. So.
What about other houses in the area? They have railings?
No.
Okay, this was something that Mrs. Myers alluded to when she came, her and her husband came into the office, all right? Mr. Rucker had explained to her, ma'am, if you can give us addresses, we're more than happy to go out and to check those. And as far as that, we have not gotten any addresses. I'm more than happy to, all right? A lot of times we're in a position to where we're going from one point to another, or we're looking into one property, focusing on it, and find one that's relatively close, all right? Yes, there are other places. I wrote up a property today for lack or absence of handrails. So,
I just want to clarify something. So when you write them up for not having handrails,
yes, ma'am.
so are we giving them a time limit to get them?
They were given 30 days. So their next inspection would have been June 17th. But due to the fact that they filed the appeal, there's no action taken until after the appeals board renders a decision. So.
Okay.
So I'm a little confused here. This says write-up. It doesn't say penalty.
No, they're contesting the actual write-up. I'm sure that they will explain once they're able to come up of what their contention is.
I'm still not understanding.
They don't feel that the property should have been written at all. They don't feel as if that a write-up or a notice of violation should have been sent to them at all.
Okay, so when does the penalty come in?
That would be after that initial 30 days, depending upon any issues or variables being pushed into it. So.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay.
I'd like to speak.
Any more questions for me? And then we can.
No.
Mrs. Myers.
No.
No, we're good.
Can you come up to the? Good afternoon. Will you state your name and address?
My name is Beth Myers, and if would you bring the picture of my home back up, please? Thank you. We have put a lot of money and effort into that home. Almost 6 years. We took this home when we knew it needed a lot of work. $35,000 on the outside, another $18,000 on the porch. We love this home. We moved to Sandusky for one reason, because of what this town was doing to the city. You go down my street, there are homes there that have character. They do not have railings. Their steps are just as wide as mine, maybe a little bit more. But when you do a railing, you're taking away from the character of this home. And this is the reason we bought this home. The reason I called Mr. Snyder for a complaint on my neighbors, I have lived in hell for 3 years. I've got to compose myself. I have nothing against, I want to verify this very quick. I am not prejudiced or against handicap, okay? Because I have a niece that is handicapped. When they bought this home, they turned it into a handicap facility. They brought in this dog that said was a soothing dog. It's no soothing dog. A dog doesn't growl. It doesn't bark and show its teeth. The dog has been loose many times where I've had to call the police and the dog warden. It chased a little boy down the street. To the point where the dog with their son, the owners of the house, their son doesn't have the capacity or the knowledge to shut the front door. The dog goes out, okay? I have to pick up their dog poop, clean pee out of my driveway. Then they get somebody off the streets to cut the grass. It's all, and we share a driveway, mind you, forgot to tell you that. Grass all over. I can show you pictures.
Ma'am, can we stay focused on your railings?
The railings, but I have to tell you the reason why this happened, why the railings came about. It got to the point where things were happening and nothing was being done. He's got pictures of their front porch where it's eroding and falling apart. We share the driveway, ma'am. She hired some little girl that was 8 years old to shovel snow. The day before, that night, it had rained. The next day, it snowed and it froze. She hired this little girl to come shovel her driveway. We have now hired an attorney because if that little girl would have fell and hit her head on those steps, we would have been liable. So now we have an attorney, which is costing me money to protect my home. So I called him and made the complaint because I was getting tired. I'm thinking, okay, all that stuff in front of their house is falling apart. Who's going to be the person to clean up the mess? Because mom and dad live in Toledo. Daughter lives on the other side in Perkins. So who's going to clean the mess? We are. So when I called him and made the complaint, which I thought was fair, told him about the peeling on the garage, the vent from the dryer, which our driveway, our houses are only 9 feet apart. Crap coming out of their vent. I mean, just big stuff. That's a fire hazard.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask you this
But I'm
question,
telling
Ms.
you,
Myers.
I'm trying to tell you, so when I made the complaint, fine and dandy. The next thing I know, a week and a half later, he comes back to my house. We see him down the road. He's taking pictures again, ma'am. I motioned to him. He pulls up in front of our house. And please do not deny this. He goes, well, here's what's going to happen. They're not going to put a railing up unless you put a railing up. I was never in violations for 3.5 years. Why am I in violation today? Why? For 3.5 years, I've never been in violation because they made a comment to him saying if you don't put up a railing, they're not going to put one up. At that point, I told him I was not putting one up because I was not in violation.
Okay, I'm gonna stop you here for a minute. So what I'm gathering is basically you contacted them.
Correct.
But in turn, it kind of reversed itself and now they came
Because
back
he is ma'am, he has knowledge of these people. He knows these people, and I think it was a conflict of interest. If I would have known that he had any kind of connections with their daughter, who lives in Perkins, I would have asked for another code enforcer to come in. I am sorry. Now I'm going to let my husband, but you need to know what we have done and what we have been through. And now you're putting me in violation for arm railing when you go down my street. And I'm not giving an address because I won't do it. I will not impend on these people. Their homes have been like that for the last 100 years without railings. Why am I being subject? I cannot understand, and I want to ask you why I'm being subject.
Okay, you can't ask him that.
Because a complaint was rendered via email in regards to you not having railings on your steps. I can't tell the people that when they file a complaint that I'm not handling it.
Enough is enough. The bottom line is, first of all, when you said, why are you being singled out? You know, codes change. I mean, something that was in 1999 may have changed in 2022. I'm talking now. I'm speaking now. I get it. But the bottom line is, again, if codes change, then you have to change with the codes. That's just the bottom line. And as I just told that older lady that was here, this is how things get started. Somebody makes a phone call. It's not like he's going around looking to see who don't have railings on their porch. So he got an email, phone call, something that triggered him to come and do his job. And that's what he's doing at the present time.
Can I ask you a question? If I had never made the phone call,
I can't say what would have happened.
would I have been in violation then?
I don't know. But see, again, sometimes things don't always work out like you think it is gonna work out. Are you Mr. Myers?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I'm gonna give you,
I'm getting very.
that's fine. I'm gonna give you some time to say what you have to say. Again, I'm gonna be honest, I don't know what you expect for this board at this time to do. We can't tell him to take away the write-up. The only thing that we can do is, he gave you 30 days to follow through. If you don't follow through, then you would have to come back and see us for an administrative penalty. But there's nothing that we can change today about the write-up.
Well, I think you can, because.
That's not in our power, that's what I'm trying to tell you. The only thing that
You
we
can
have the
issue
power,
variance.
we can't issue any of that. The only thing that we can do is, you have the 30 days to respond, either you're gonna put the railing up or you're not. And if you don't put the railing up,
I'm writing this in Sandusky Register.
then the administrative penalty will be put to you, and then that's where you can come before us, and we can waive that, or we can go ahead and enforce that. But as far as what he did, as far as the write-up, we can't change that. There's nothing, we can't override that or anything. So I'm just trying to tell you that.
But it went through 2 building inspections. In 2018, when we did the first work, I approached the building department for a permit. Their reply to me was, I did not need a permit.
And you might not in 2018, as I just explained to
That's
your wife.
fine, but according to the building codes and everything that, in 1955, the state legislature exempted 1 and 2 and 3 family dwellings back then, okay?
All I'm saying, and as you said, 1955.
Yes, it's exempted, ma'am.
That's at 1950, we're in
The house is
2022.
100 years old.
As I said to you, sir, I cannot, this board has no power to take away the write-up.
Well, we'll be back.
Okay.
Now,
No.
no.
This is
What?
a new one.
No.
No,
What we're gonna have you
said
do,
your piece there.
we're gonna have you speak afterwards. Just have a seat. When we're done, you can speak to us then. Have a seat. We'll listen to you then. Okay, so, at the end of the day, there's nothing we can do about the write-up. It is done. There is no other cases. Do any more of the inspectors have anything else they want to say at this time?
No,
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we're done.
Okay, a motion to adjourn.
I don't get to speak.
He wants to speak.
I get to speak. This is a public hearing.
Yeah, let him speak. Second time around.
It's Mr. Heil today,
Mr.
but
Heil, I'm sorry.
if the board or code or someone wants to, or the family wants to call you as a witness, then yes, but
There's no public
it's not
participation.
just open season, actually, Mr. Meisner.
Can I ask a question?
Would you ask, would they?
I don't want to testify, I just want to ask a question.
Okay, go ahead.
What's the process for a variance?
It's not, they go to the.
Depends on what.
Variance is done through the zoning department.
Yeah, that's through that's through another department that I'm on.
Okay,
But
so.
you can't do that here.
So I guess what I'm asking, and maybe the way to resolve this.
Please ask.
Hey, let me talk. Maybe the way to resolve this is for them to apply for the variance. The fact that they passed a couple of building inspections, it wasn't picked up then, and let them decide whether or not they need a variance.
Well, you know what, Steve, I agree. As I said, I can't tell him what the next steps are. All I can tell him is what we can't do at this end. If you want to give him advice to do
I'm just trying to
that.
offer a solution.
And again, that's something that he should take to heart on what you're saying to him.
Maybe that's the proper approach.
But that's something that I can't offer because I don't know that. So I'm just.
Can anybody make a complaint against anybody even though they don't live in the city?
It's a free country. You can make a complaint against anybody you want to.
Even if the person who made the complaint isn't the owner of a house in
Who's
the city?
making the complaint?
You don't have to be a citizen of the city to file a complaint. Are we talking about housing nuisance?
Yes.
You don't have to be a citizen. You could be an average person driving through and have a grass complaint. You call it in, we have to follow up on it.
Okay.
So there's nothing in our ordinance that says that you have to be a citizen of the city of Sandusky to file a complaint.
Thank you for that.
Okay,
Thank you for hearing me out of my.
Oh, no problem.
That this even came to you, it should never happen.
So what you're telling me is I have to come back then, and then eventually go to the building department and ask for a variance?
No, what I'm thinking that you need to do, and again, this is off the record, I don't know. What I'm saying is, we can't stop the write-up that you received. What Mr. Pajali suggested to you was start with the zoning department and ask them. Because again, each department they have their own rules that they answer to. So what he is saying is, start with the zoning department and see what you can get, or how far you can get with them regarding the variance. I can't tell you if you're gonna get one or not, but that's where you need to start, and that's what he is saying. And
Can
he is
I
saying-
interrupt, actually, for this particular, this is a code violation.
Right.
It's not, it doesn't deal with zoning.
Right.
So it would be up to this board if there is the authority under the Sandusky City ordinances for this board to extend timelines for compliance, which you have done in a previous meeting today. There is the authority for some minor deviation. I'm paraphrasing here. There is the ability of this board to grant variances where there would be a hardship of a very literal interpretation of the building or applicable codes that you all are the appeals board for. So you do have some options with the write-up from our code standpoint.
This is what I'd like to do at this time. First of all, no disrespect to you as the attorney.
Sure.
But I would like to table this, and then I would like to have a discussion with you, because off the record, you're telling us things here that had maybe we known this, I could have addressed this for this gentleman. So this is gonna be tabled for the next board meeting, but after the meeting, I'd like to talk to you.
Sure.
I need a motion for adjournment.
Oh, sorry, you need to actually table this. If the board's decision is to table this, that would require a motion, and I would suggest you table it for exactly one meeting so you can come back at the next meeting without another motion. Motion to table it for one meeting is, I think, what you all are suggesting, potentially.
Well, it's clear. Why should we table it? It's clear. He needs to have railings. If we start doing this variant stuff against this code that's required, other people will come up here and say, well, you did it for that guy. We're setting precedents here, and it's not good.
Presidents, ma'am. I can take you right down Columbus Avenue, and there's a house right next to the Dorn Cook building that doesn't have railings and the steps are wider than mine.
Well, complain about it then. Put your complaint in.
What are we going to do for the table? That's what I'm asking.
We're gonna table it.
Before you table it, ma'am, I'd like Mr. Misner to speak.
He can. You have to let him talk now if the applicant, yes.
Make sure you stay after this meeting.
Sure.
All right, so I came, is it
All
Dan?
right, Mike, I'm gonna put you on a short leash today. You say what you gotta say for
I got
this. and
it. I'm better.
That's it.
Hey,
I
wait,
don't
wait,
wanna
wait.
hear that fired up stuff or nothing. I'm going
Is
back on the
his
record.
name Dan?
Dale.
Dale. Okay, so I ran into Dale, and he told me he moved from Huron, and I spoke with him and his wife. I didn't know anything about the dogs barking or peeing or any of that kind of stuff. That should be in the, what's the other board? The board we got between neighbor fighting and, what's it?
I don't know of any board that keeps the neighbors from fighting.
Yeah. So, there is one. There is a board we have. I used to serve on that as well, but it's been years ago. It has a mediator. You go to the mediator. Somebody got to help me out. All right, I'll think of it for him. So anyway, there is a board when there's complaints or there's issues with the police department. They have a mediator that you go to and you can discuss neighborhood issues like that. This whole dog thing, I didn't know anything about. So I met Dale, and I was talking to him, and he said, I bought a house in Waverly. I moved from here. And that's great, you know. And he didn't know I was a commissioner. He didn't know I was on code enforcement before. I said, it's great. I said, man, there's a really nice house on Waverly Boulevard that somebody put hundreds of $1,000s in. And he showed me a picture of the house. I said, that's it. That's a freaking beautiful house. Got a built-in swimming pool. Put hundreds of $1,000s in the house. So I think my point before I got off track is like, we want to attract people to move here from here and put hundreds of $1,000s in houses and make, you know, that's a great house. I don't think that we started code enforcement and using housing nuisance task force to run a person like Dale out. It should be in this mediation type thing before it gets here. So just to correct you, Mrs. Gamblin, I think pre-existing railings and pre-existing conditions that pass once, you don't have to update every time the codes change. Mr. Tom may be able to change you, but if they were existing before, that's the way it is. You don't have to go. So if it went through housing, and the reason it struck chord with me is I had the building official come to my house and told me, and it wasn't Mr. Tom, I said, I got a step going up to the laundry in my Airbnb. I said, how do you want me to build the stairs? And the he said, well, you need a 36-inch landing, 2 steps going to it. I said, are there any railing? No railing. So I said, well, that's the same thing happened to me.
Sir, what's your point here? I mean,
my point is,
yeah, what's your point?
It should be a suggestion. Like,
you know what? We don't make the code. We just
enforce it.
Enforce them. That's all we do.
You know,
and if they change them, sir, we got to go along with the change.
Right.
Just like any change, you got to go.
So there is no venue.
You know what? You're not driving a horse and buggy. They used to.
Yeah, I don't have anything wrong there, but I'm just telling you, Mr. Snyder knows I work with him. He's written me up on a few things. I had 3 inspectors, Mr. Rucker, Dante.
You're not making any points. You just.
No, they come 5 times. I have had inspected 5 years in a row. I got the building inspector. My point is, you don't get to come back 6 years later and say you have to change it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks.
Hey.
Good. We're good.
All right, good.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to make one comment before we adjourn this.
Mr. Goldberger has the floor.
Go ahead.
All I want to say here, this section 311.71.8, and you will understand this as well. This language is here for a reason, okay? It wouldn't be here if it wasn't a safeguard to prevent an issue from happening. In my mind, it makes common sense when you have a situation like this to add the railings. No, okay, you don't agree. If someone falls on those steps.
You could get sued.
And it's written here, and it hasn't been enforced, and it hasn't been addressed, someone's going to have a problem.
Yeah.
I don't, I disagree. I mean, I
Oh,
don't
yes,
disagree.
you would, sir. I mean,
You don't disagree.
Yes, you would.
I don't.
You would have a problem.
Someone's going to have a problem.
My wife went out and took 50 pictures already, and she's freaking compiling them. Just shut up. Like, but all over town.
You know,
Like, how does this happen? Is that what we're trying to run out of town? That's why people move.
That's the only comment I'm going to make.
Right there.
If you don't have railings on your house, you can get sued. If somebody slips.
Insurance company, you've given them notice that you need railings.
And they do
You're
it.
gonna send them $100.
And they do it.
Fine.
Mr.
Mines do
Meinzer,
it.
my question for you, if you have a list of 50 properties, how are you aware that these properties have not already been written up? Have you done an audit with the housing department to know whether we?
Can I suggest that we focus again on the actual issue at the table, and if there's we need a motion?
Okay, as I said again.
Thank you.
Are we tabling this, or what are we doing?
I will move that we table this issue for one meeting, return and rediscuss it.
Thank you.
Second.
It's been moved and second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
No opposed? Take a roll call, please.
Mr. Gendelsberger?
Yes.
Mr. Matthews?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Gamblin?
Yes.
Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
Okay, what about a meeting to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and second. All in favor signify by
Aye.
saying aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Human Relations Commission. That's the one I was trying to think about.
Human relations.
Human Relations. That's all dog barking and eating.
Oh, I'm here, I'm just doing my job.
Okay, thank you.
We got code and then we go by. You know, show you word.
No, I'm just, I'm getting ready to stop. I'm getting ready to.
Let me shut this off. Let me shut this off.
Please do, because it's not fixing to be pretty in here.